Rahul, thank you so much for taking the time. Really, really awesome to speak with you. I'm not sure if you remember, but we actually did an interview together, I think 6 or 7 years ago already in San Francisco. You were speaking at a startup grind conference. And at that time, you were still at Unikrn. You guys were building in web3, even though I guess people didn't really call it web3 back then. But super excited to speak with you today about all things web3, gaming, and what you guys are working on. Could you maybe just start with like a brief introduction of your journey?
Well, first, I do remember. I
Awesome.
I remember that event. And look, I'll just say that I've spent most of my career in gaming and entertainment, and I've had sort of multiple companies in the space that have been acquired. My first company was a PC gaming company that was acquired by Hewlett Packard. It was called VoodooPC, and I've been playing games ever since I was a kid. There was another company that I got involved with quite early, and I was sort of like their largest investor. I got their seed round set up and then their Series A, and I helped them sort of rebrand and do their strategy. And it was like an AR VR company, very similar to Oculus, but it had cameras on the outside.
Nice.
It's called Vrvana, based out of Montreal. This company was amazing, and it got acquired by Apple in 2017. That company was the one that sort of put me on this whole idea of metaverse. They actually owned the domain Ver.se, something like that. Like they actually were very early in 2012 to 2014 nice. With this whole idea of what the metaverse is. Their CEO is super visionary. And anyways, I was at Microsoft for a few years where we started Microsoft Ventures. I actually started it with my current business partner, David Raskino. He's a brilliant guy. He's one of the smartest engineers that I've ever known. After I left Microsoft, I started Unikrn. Nice. And, we were building an esports betting company with a pretty significant blockchain investment on the back end. And it became, one of the largest dedicated esports bookmakers in the world. We went through some, we basically went through some highs and lows in the whole era of the ICO phase and, all these crypto coins and things like that. I mean, things were crazy. I've been through I've sort of been in, I've been in the Bitcoin and blockchain space for a number of years, and I've been through multiple bear markets. This one was wild. There was a point in time where, Unikrn's asset value was in the billions. And then, when the market collapsed, it went down to like the hundreds of millions basically. And, having to deal with that sort of unclear regulation and then dealing with the difficult regulation in gambling was challenging. But at the end of the day, that company got acquired last year by one of the largest gambling companies in the world, Entain. And I, as part of the deal, I sort of, decided that like, I don't want to work anymore in that industry. I want to go back to gaming. And so I ended up leaving right after the acquisition and started Irreverent Labs, which is this new game company that we're building it with my partner from Microsoft Ventures, David. And I haven't had this much fun in years. It's an incredible company. We're doing something really fun, and it's in the blockchain, entertainment space.
We are definitely going to get into that, what you guys are building. I've been obviously watching you kind of from the very beginning. Once you announced everything, obviously you guys have probably been working on it for a little longer before you actually put it out there. But I definitely want to learn more. But, before we get into that, so obviously you have been in crypto for a very long time. And, I'm just curious, what was your first NFT? Was it like gaming related NFT, or did you actually get something else?
My first NFT was CryptoKitty. I thought it was fascinating that you could create this sort of still picture trading card type thing. And, the space was super interesting to me. And at the time, my business partner and I were sort of, I guess you could say like I was the biggest bull for crypto in the company. And, he was sort of, he was sort of not quite there, but sort of there. But we got approached. Actually, the CEO of Virtually Human Studio, ZED Run, sent me a LinkedIn message. And he said, hey, I'm working on this really cool horse racing game on blockchain. I'd love to speak with you guys. And, right away, I thought that was pretty cool. And so my partner, being from Australia, got in touch with them, and, we made an investment in this company. We made an investment because we really believed in what they were doing. This idea of horse racing on blockchain and being able to buy these horses, trade them, race them, breed them was a really cool vision. And this team is very, very good. So we were the largest investors in Virtually Human Studios, or ZED Run. And then they went off and raised some more money with the Churning Group and A16Z and that sort of thing. And so sort of very early on, watched this whole gaming, entertainment, play to earn space establish itself. And then the bull market happened. And, all bets were off. The whole valuations went crazy, and a bunch of opportunists came into the space. And, as per usual, in this space, as with every bull market, it brings on a whole new wave of buyers, lots of retail investors, lots of opportunists, lots of people who claim to be entrepreneurs who aren't. And then there are a few really good entrepreneurs who come into the space. But what ends up happening in these bull markets is, FOMO is created, and, ultimately the bubble will burst. And the scams get exposed, and as do the projects that are not well funded. They sort of run out of cash at some point, and then a few years later, another bull market happens and things go crazy again. So it's inevitable that it'll happen again. But I think the most important thing is the companies and the projects that are building, that are sort of building for long term and are well funded, are going to be the cream that rises to the top in the next bull market.
Absolutely. And I'm really curious, did you plan on building Web3 game all along? Or was there some trigger that you were working with these companies, you were exposed, you saw this play to earn basically rise up so quickly, and you maybe saw certain things that are just not done well, or something that could be improved upon?
I would just say, look, I'm a gamer, and I love playing games. I play a lot of games, but the thing that I would say is this: the future of gaming and entertainment is pretty much what Irreverent Labs is building, which is, we believe that players should have, an emotional connection with the characters that they play, and what that requires is a lot more than just a piece of art, for example, right? And a lot of these games, they talk about interoperability, where you can take your items or characters from game to game, and they call that the Holy Grail. Yes. And it's not. This is a very elementary, non-gamer way of looking at blockchain, and this is why Kotaku and all these other places that are traditional gaming media houses hate blockchain, because you have some 50-year-old gamer coming in and saying, interoperability is the Holy Grail. They don't know what they're talking about. Like, they haven't played a game in years. They may not even ever played a game ever. And they're saying that. Like, interoperability might be important down the road, but the reality is, if you really think about some of the most successful, games and experiences in history, like, look at Tamagotchi. That's something that I looked at, this sort of mobile keychain, pet, right? It was super successful with the most basic sort of interactions. And you have to understand, why was that? Why was it successful? And it really had to do with the emotional connection between the owners of the Tamagotchis and the pet themselves, right? And then beyond that, you look at games like Pokemon, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, and even franchises like South Park and Family Guy. Like, they're successful because they create this sort of cult following and a sense of humor. With Street Fighter, it's sort of like these big events that happen where people would get together and have these sort of these like fighting game type tournaments and esports and things like that. And then Tamagotchi and Pokemon was really about just being sort of active and getting out there and carrying it with you everywhere. So when I think about blockchain, I would say, like, we weren't really saying let's go build a blockchain game because play to earn is hot. What we were really thinking about is, how do we create a really fun game and incorporate these elements of ownership and culture and music and art and all of that into this world. And and that's how we created Irreverent Labs. That's how we came up with this concept of MechaFightClub.
You guys have been working on it for a while right now. What is the biggest hurdle for you guys? Like, is it actually the blockchain that you think that, like, hey, it's going to be a trouble to onboard the mass, onto this thing? Because yes, it's still not as easy for everyone to set up wallet and transfer crypto, get the NFTs going, etc. Or is it something else?
I think for us, we're building, like, we're a deep tech company, and basically what we're building is a fighting game where every single character in the game is an artificially intelligent NPC living on the blockchain as an NFT, right? So these characters are all unique individuals They look unique. They are, the art is unique. They have unique names, that sort of thing. But what's really makes them interesting is we're breathing life into them with AI. We're giving them their own AI personality. And, we're doing that by sort of modifying their DNA and imbuing them with their own kind of like chicken DNA in each bird. And then we're using AI to automate the fights. And so the hard part for us really is just like hiring the right people, finding people who spent their careers doing some very serious work in machine learning, and then joining us to build a mecha cockfighting game. I mean, it's crazy how you think about what we're doing. We're really taking these most amazing, computer scientists and machine learning experts and artists and putting them in a room and saying, we're going to go build this crazy cockfighting game. And they look at us like, what the hell, So finding people that fit our DNA has been difficult, but we have done it, and we've slowly built a really great team. And when you talk about being in it for a while, the reality is, we're only just a year old. Like a few days ago, we hit our 1 year anniversary. Yeah. We raised $45 million in that year through some of the best, investors through equity rounds in the world, really in this space. And so we're well funded to go through this bear market and then some. We're well funded for the next several years to build this crazy game that we're building.
Amazing. And I'm really curious, like, what is your vision, like overall vision for this space, for this like next evolution of gaming, right? Because I've been speaking with a bunch of my friends that were there when the free-to-play thing happened, right? When suddenly you were downloading games for free and you were monetizing in a different ways, and it was all about that content and like really kind of similar style, right? Like you need to really make it interesting for people to keep playing and spending money within the game, because otherwise you cannot really survive. And now we kind of went through the play to earn, which seems that it's not really working in most cases. And so now we're going into the next evolution. How do you see this? Or, is there any specific phrase that you use, guys, internally to define this kind of next evolution?
We're actually building, a 100-year economy. We're building a very fun and funny game that's built on top of this 100-year economy. And really the vision for us is building emotional connections between the players and the characters that you own. And we do that with the machine learning technology that we're building. We believe that, these characters are like pets. And, if you have a dog, for example, you're very attached to your dog. If somebody offers you $5,000 for your dog, you're not going to take it because you love your dog so much, right? That's kind of the idea with this game is we're building emotional connections between the players and the characters, and this has never been done before in a video game. It's never been done where every character in a video game is an artificially intelligent NPC. If you watch the movie Free Guy, it's sort of like a really neat way of looking at what an NPC is, and the fact that Ryan Reynolds, became intelligent and then realized he was part of this video game is pretty neat and very, very, very futuristic. That movie, I don't know how they, came up with it, but it's a brilliant sort of view of how NPCs are currently looked at, which is basically stupid characters.
Okay. Interesting. And so that's kind of the game or that scenario that you guys are going after.
But we're doing it in the guise of a mecha cockfighting game, right? So it's a game that's based in Las Vegas in the future. It starts in Las Vegas anyways, in the year 2140. And these robotic birds hatch from eggs that were left behind from alien technology many years earlier. And, they hatch and as they hatch, they're fighting each other in the octagon, basically. So it's kind of a ridiculous premise, but these mecha birds, cocks and hens come out and fight one another, and they earn a living in the octagon. And, we basically, we're building a series of sort of mini game experiences, I want to say. I don't want to call them mini games because then it feels like it's like an app store of games. It's not. There's a series of experiences that we're building around these characters. And it starts with the player and the character interactions. Players can train the characters. They can breed them using this, sort of breeding experience that we're creating. They can watch them fight. They can decide what fights they want them in and out. You can do sort of all sorts of things. You can train them in different ways, train them, different dances, that sort of thing. And then on top of that, we're building a creator economy that underpins all of this that's designed to last 100 years. So we have studied the whole play to earn space. And while I agree with you, most of these games will fail. Some of them are well funded enough that they're going to figure it out. But the reality is most of these economies were set up like Ponzi schemes accidentally, where, you know, player growth stagnates or the economy turns around, the whole thing falls apart, right? So how do you build actual incentive to play the game? And so we modeled our economy after what it would take to build an actual successful economy, which is really about human production. Without you know, actual human production in the game, you can't have a sustainable economy. And that's exactly why we built our 100-year economy the way we have. And we wrote a white paper on it that's getting, you know, a lot of attention. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
This is a really good segue, because I wanted to actually go a little bit deeper how you guys think about this 100-year economy, and, you know, how you think about, you know, having real like supply and demand so that this can survive. So when you say your white paper is getting a lot of attention, could you just summarize the white paper within just a couple minutes?
To summarize it, basically, this white paper, there's an economy that we're building where these birds earn something in the octagon. They earn it in this game. They're called Bok-Boks. These Bok-Boks are only produced with this new protocol we're creating called proof of play. And so, you know, in our lore, everything is based on lore. There's a story about this man who comes to Earth in the year 2008. His name is Satoshi Nakamoto, and he drops the Bitcoin white paper to save the Earth from, you know, the financial ruin. And then he left because he's an alien. He went back to space and he's never been seen again. But in the future, in our world, there's a descendant of Satoshi Nakamoto. His name is Baktoshi Bakamoto. He's a chicken. And he writes this white paper on the future of proof of work, which is proof of play. And the interesting thing about these Bok-Boks is they cannot be bought, you know, from us. We don't give them to staff. We don't give them to investors. Nobody can buy these things. The only way to earn them is by playing the game. And so it's sort of like mining, but you're playing the game to earn these coins. And then the way that those are sort of being funded or backed or you know, backstopped is with actual real money coming into the economy. So, you know, like real work, real money coming into the economy. So we have, you know, creators can come in and create art in the game. They can, you know, musicians can create music. You can buy that music in the game. You can create a roost for your chickens to live in certain parts of town. You know, the whole breeding part is really interesting because it's a game in itself. There's ways for sort of big brands to participate in the game in multiple ways. And so we're backing up our economy with real world, you know, economy. And we take this word metaverse very seriously. You know, as you probably heard it a million times, you know, people talk about metaverse. If you go on LinkedIn, you know, it's like metaverse, AI, VR, you know, AR, like they talk about but they're not really doing any of it. But we really believe in this word. And we think of it as a mixed reality experience where, you know, if you walk into a bar, you should be able to have a cockfight in that bar and then share it across social media. And so we're doing things like that to make it, you know, different.
Just given your experience in esports, I would even say that like that's also going to be the direction that you guys are going to go. Because I mean, for me, kind of as an audience or as somebody who is kind of just watching from afar, like these kinds of fights, right, between different animals, there is like a real culture around this. And so you guys can actually create, or you're creating something for the metaverse or for the next generation.
Yeah, so we're creating something for the next generation because we don't believe in the idea of like real animal fighting. We think it's, you know, somewhat cruel in many ways, but it is a part of culture in Southeast Asia. So what we'd like to see is, you know, people in Southeast Asia who don't want to, you know, keep a pen of real chickens so they can fight. You know, they buy chickens from us and then create their own sort of virtual pens, and they can do everything that you can in real life, except, you know, you don't have to worry about them dying, because in our game, they don't die. In our game, they get repaired, you know. And so there's an esports angle to this where you can build teams. Ultimately, what you're trying to do is create as much attention as you can around your birds. So you could, if you own 5 birds and you create a team, you can start building up the hype around that team, because the more human attention that these birds generate in the octagon, the more they actually earn. And that's the point of this, right? This is an attention-based economy that we're building, and no one's done this before. Yes. The other thing is there's another side to it too, which is as you know, I have a gambling history as well, right? What we're not going to do though is Irreverent Labs will never be a gambling company, but I know what it takes to build one. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create all the interfaces and live data feeds and things like that so that regulated great gambling companies like DraftKings and Entain and others can buy it from us and then put it into their feeds and take bets on the outcome of the fights.
Now, when you talk about this like next evolution, it reminds me of another movie called Real Steel. I really enjoy that movie, but basically they build robots, hardware robots, and they fight each other. And also like it's a spectator sport, right? So it's really that kind of that attention economy, as you mentioned. And so it just reminds me of that. And, I fully agree with you that if you're able to implement all of these things, be it esports, potentially betting, sports betting, and obviously getting brands involved and, even allowing artists maybe create different kind of skins, I guess that's also going to be possible. And if people really enjoy the game, if really enjoy the experience, then that can be sustainable. And plus you have that real ownership through NFTs.
Every single one is unique. They are not only unique looking, but they're unique in name, they're unique in style, and then they're unique in terms of the DNA that we're imbuing in each one, and therefore they're collectible. So people are starting to collect them. They're starting to build these collections, and we may be kind of undiscovered now. Like we're not going out there and there's plenty of projects out there that go out and say, buy our NFTs and the floor price and this and that. They focus on the wrong stuff, I think. And they sort of push this, this notion of floor price and whatever. But, at the end of the day, once this thing starts to gain traction and, people start playing the game and that sort of thing, people are going to start collecting them regardless, right? We don't have to ask them to do it. They just do it. So it's very similar to Pokemon. People collect Pokemon cards, but in our case, there's a true limited number of them and you see what the limit is. So we just have to continue to build the audience for it.
Exactly. And so just one more question to this, what you mentioned at the beginning, your number one focus is to build this game, to build this ecosystem that the characters are connected to the players, to the owners, right? And so you mentioned that you can train them and you can do all sorts of different things with them. And so could you maybe a little bit go deeper into, what is the role of the player in this ecosystem? Because obviously, if people will want to trade them, like, will it change? Let's say if I'm first the owner, I do something and then you buy it from me and you want to do something else. Is that possible?
Each MechaBot comes with their own provenance card, which is a live trading card that tracks their entire history. So it tracks their previous ownership history. It tracks their, amateur fight history, their professional fight history, their breeding history, all of that stuff, right? So it's got a life. It lives and breathes on blockchain. And if I trade you one of my 4-year-old birds and you take it, you still have that history and that provenance, and that's very unique to blockchain. That you can do that and then freely trade it on open markets. So so you might end up you might see a very famous bird like, I don't know, Ellen DeGenerate or whatever, come up and do really well in the octagon. And because they're doing well in there and it shows their entire fight history earnings, if their earnings are good, you might decide that you want to buy it on a multiple. I mean, I don't know, right? I don't know how people are going to trade it, but I imagine that sort of market dynamic will sort of happen at some point. It's like living art, right? You could, I can understand why regulators get upset about some tokens and things like that, sort of paralleling them to securities and that sort of thing, because, you're basically telling people if you buy this token, it'll go up in value or something, right? And they're all the same. They're fungible. But in this case, these are non-fungible pieces of art, right? And they're living, breathing characters that have a history. So, people want to trade them, they can trade them. And there's no arguing that there's unique history behind each one. That's why I love this space. Yeah. And, and I've seen the worst of regulation in this space. And I've seen, the best of it as well. The best regulators actually in the gambling industry, because they've been in it for so long and they really understand how to allow innovation. But in the crypto space, regulation isn't really fun because no one knows what they're doing yet. So, yeah.
Yeah. And kind of moving on, I want to ask a couple more questions on maybe the technical side of things and also the business building side of things. But, you mentioned that all the data lives on blockchain. How are you guys thinking about segmenting this kind of data and kind of make it more understandable for people?
what we're doing with the provenance card is essentially taking the blockchain data and putting it into layman terms. So, everything that happens
Nice.
on blockchain, and off the blockchain as well, on our platform, we're adding it to the provenance card. So users don't really have to go to SolScan or EtherScan or something to see what the history looks like. They can see it on the provenance card. That's kind of the idea of the card, right?
Nice.
Is to translate that for regular people. Which kind of brings me to the point
Very
of,
nice.
You kind of brought it up earlier. How do you make it easy for real users in this space, right?
Yeah.
And we're working through that. I mean, look, I do believe in wallet authentication is the future. I think it's a big future versus, say, email IDs and, that sort of thing. I think passwordless authentication is something that people are going to start doing. Like, right now if you're sophisticated, you might use something like 1Password or LastPass or something like that.
Yes.
If you're unsophisticated, you'll use a system that you have in your head that you think nobody can hack, but they do. And you might write your passwords on a notepad and keep the same password for everything. That's really dumb.
Yeah.
But in the future, this idea of like passwordless authentication and using your biometrics to be able to log into sites is definitely part of the future. And then wallet authentication as well, where, you can authenticate anonymously with your wallet and the only thing that you can track is your buying history, essentially. And so trying to make that easy for real users is something that will happen over time. At the moment, it's not super easy, but we're making it as easy as we can. But I can tell you there's nothing fun about minting an NFT. It's just, it doesn't matter how good you make it. If you don't realize how hackable this space actually is. I mean, for example, we did a mint of our, birds. We have like something like 2,200 birds out there. And some asshole somewhere in the world airdropped every wallet a fake NFT of
Yes.
with our name on it. And if you click on that NFT and then you give access to your wallet, they drain your wallet, right? And so we had to warn our users, and that sort of stuff is not easy to deal with, because you got to mass communicate to everybody and let them know, do not click on this garbage, right? Yeah,
exactly. I mean, this is something that it happens all the time, right? And even I see tweets from people that have been in the space for a long, long time, and even them, they get scammed, right? Because they click on something that they shouldn't. And so I think it's definitely both the education and like trying to like really make sure that everybody understands that you should not click on anything that doesn't come from official channels, etc. But obviously, the tech side to kind of like make this impossible. And obviously, I do believe it's going to happen at some point, or at least it's going to become easier, but, probably going to take some time.
I agree.
Right?
It will take time. But the market is getting more sophisticated. It's growing. Every single time there's a bull market in crypto, a new wave of buyers come in and a new wave of customers. So and the next one's going to be bigger than the last one.
Yes, absolutely. This is great. And you guys are building for mobile, or are you guys specifically focusing on desktop right now?
For the moment, it's browser based, but we are building on mobile. So it'll be a mobile first experience. Nice. Mobile, building on mobile, obviously you have to build native to make it really work well. And so, you have to build it across both iOS and Android. Android is probably our preference to start, mainly because many of our customers are in Southeast Asia and they all use, Android. But, iOS is a big part of our future as well. I think the App Store, Apple in general isn't sure how to deal with this crypto space. They want to cut up absolutely everything, but their maximum transaction size is $99 or something like that, right? And at least with Android, you can side load things and stuff like that. So mobile's challenging, but we are creating a mobile first experience. Yeah.
Awesome. No, that's great, because I ultimately think that's where we're headed as well, right? Like when you look at all of those new things coming out, all of these companies, blockchain companies, and, launching their phones and like trying to figure out how to make that experience in mobile better, because until today, like everybody's kind of scared of scanning anything, right, related to blockchain with their mobile device, because it hasn't really been optimized for that, and also the security issues, etc. But, ultimately I can imagine that I would like to play Mecha on my phone and even watch on my phone and just have it with me all the time, because you mentioned Tamagotchi, right? That's exactly what I would be going for. So, that makes so much sense. Couple more questions. So you have been in gaming and you have seen it, in and out, even the blockchain side of things prior to what you're doing today. What does it really take to build a game on blockchain from 0 to 100, or from 0 to when it's actually playable? Like, what are the main differences, and what are the main obstacles where maybe most of the people will just get stuck?
So the first thing it takes is patience, which requires time, which requires funding. And the ones that probably won't make it are the ones that had the community fund them their money by selling NFTs with a promise for the future. There's a bunch of scams that happened as a result of that. And, the reality is customers should not be seed investors. Customers should be customers, right? So so what it would take is patient capital, which is why, VCs like A16Z and Mantis and, there's others out there that are sort of very good patient capital in this space. Unlock Venture Partners is awesome. There's probably, like, I would say 10 that I would look at as very serious investors in the space. I mean, there's hundreds of them, but like the 10 most patient ones are the ones who have like large backings and regulatory bodies and things like that. And then it requires a really great team. You have to have a team that totally understands the vision of what you're building. They fit your, they fit your culture, and they're all adding some, they're all moving the needle every day. They're helping each other. They're supporting one another. They're not blocking each other. So building a culture of shipping, that of people that really understand how to build really great software, really great, games, putting that all together is not easy. But the nice thing is, having experience doing it, both my partner and I started with people that we've worked with in the past that love working with us. And, we brought them on first, and then we brought on people that they recommended and that sort of thing. And now we're at this stage where we're moving quite quickly.
Amazing. And just curious, what is the ratio between people that are native crypto on your team, native blockchain, and let's say native game development?
When we first started, we set out to say, we're not looking for people that are blockchain developers. That was the first thing. No, we're looking for computer scientists, the best computer scientists that we can find, because learning blockchain, you can learn it in less than a month. If you know how to program in Rust, you can develop on Solana in like 2 weeks. You'll be up and running, even a day. The reason why you want to hire the best computer, like software engineers, is because they know how to build really great software. They understand things about security and infrastructure, and and building with teams that a blockchain hacker doesn't get. Like somebody who writes a smart contract may not fully understand how to look for vulnerabilities within that smart contract. So we set out just to hire the best software engineers that we could possibly get, the best artists and designers that we could possibly get, and then the best in machine learning, and then put them together to say, we're going to go build this game. This is the blockchain that we selected. And then, our CTO, my business partner, is one of the smartest people I've known ever. And he kind of knows how to get these people working together in a machine. So I would say to anybody who's looking to, an entrepreneur coming into this space, instead of looking on LinkedIn for blockchain experts, you should look for really, really great software engineers.
I didn't know that you can literally learn Solana in such a short period of time. Obviously, if you're good at the other things, but that's pretty awesome. Where do you get Web3, or even just like in general, like game inspiration? Like to kind of come up with these new concepts, and even, let's say, the game features and tokenomics and all of the things that you are doing.
We have a great team. We riff with each other. We fit a certain culture, so we joke around a lot. So a lot of the ideas come from that. But ultimately, I've been playing games my entire life. I play games, to this day. I play games with my kids. My son actually helped write the first scripts for MechaFightClub, and he's interning with us now at the moment. He's going to university and interning with us. I think the best ideas come from, younger generations, right? So whether it's like art and culture and, music, all that sort of stuff, you have to look to younger generations. You shouldn't look at 50-year-old men for your inspiration, I guess, right? And I don't say that in a bad way. I mean, I'm 50 years old, so I'm okay saying that. But I don't look to my peers for what's cool, right? I look to the future for what's cool, and that's why we're here.
What would be your message to people that are in the position, they're looking at this space, maybe they're already sold on crypto, web3, they want to start building, but they're still kind of exploring. Is there any kind of message or advice that you would give them before they jump in?
The best advice I can give anybody looking at the space is first focus on what you're building. What you really care about building, what problem you're solving. And then if the technology, allows for it, then go into the space of blockchain or crypto, right? What you don't want to do is go into say, oh, I'm going to build a crypto company. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm just going to start doing crypto. You won't do well. It just won't work. You really have to have a reason for being on blockchain, fundamental reason. And for us, we have a core, a core reason for being here. And that's really about the ownership of these characters that people are emotionally attached to. So, the ownership, the trading, that sort of stuff is kind of a core tenet to why we're in this space. So, I think it's just really understanding what it is you're building and then sort of working the technology into it afterwards.
Amazing. Rahul, when can we expect the first fight to happen, or first, let's say an event that we can watch, December. We can attend?
December, you'll start to see the fights sort of trickle out. And then nice. The new year, we got a lot going on next year. So yeah. But December is when the first fights start. You should see, we actually have a fight that was generated a little while ago. We have the video of this fight that was generated. We're going to share it in the coming next couple of weeks. And so people get an idea what it's all about.
Can you tell us where people can learn more? And especially if they maybe want to get involved, if they're interested working with you guys, or, just provide some sort of support, where can people go?
You can find me on Twitter at Rahul Sood, RAHULSOOD. And then you can find us at MechaFightClub on Twitter. And also www.mechafightclub.com is where our core website is. If you're looking for jobs, go to IrreverentLabs.com.
Nice. Awesome. Rahul, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. And I'm super excited to watch some fights.
Thank you.
Very soon.
Appreciate it. Take care.
Awesome.